It started with a sound I couldn't explain. Not a bird, not the wind. Something raspier. Desperate. I was walking the eastern field at the edge of my property, checking for broken fences after the last storm. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, and the dew still clung to my boots. That sound came again, like someone choking on dry air. I froze. The cliffs that bordered my land weren't just dangerous, they were damn near vertical. The thought of someone or something falling off made my stomach tighten. I stepped carefully toward the slope, pushing past overgrown brush and prickly vine. A few feet down the hill, just where the rocks jutted out and flattened, I saw her. A cougar. Her body was twisted unnaturally, one paw folded beneath her, her side rising and falling with sharp, jerky breaths. Her coat was matted with blood, a deep gash ran across her ribs. One eye blinked slowly, as if even that movement was too much. I stood there like an idiot. My brain was screaming all the warnings at once. Wild animal, big teeth, danger. But she didn't move. Not when I stepped closer. Not even when I spoke. Jesus, what happened to you? She tried to lift her head, but collapsed again with a faint growl that barely registered. I should have called the sheriff. Or animal control. But I knew what they'd do. One glance and a bullet. No questions. No chances. I took off my flannel jacket and crouched low, heart hammering. I laid the jacket near her face, letting her smell it first. No reaction. Then I slowly slid my arms underneath her, trying not to press on the wound. She groaned, a low rumble deep in her throat. I expected claws, teeth, a final lunge. But she let me. Her weight was shocking. Maybe 60 pounds, maybe more. I carried her in short bursts, stopping every 10 steps to breathe. Down the hill, across the gravel path, past the chicken coop where the hens had just started squawking awake. The old red shed behind the barn was the only place out of sight. It hadn't been used in years. Dusty tools, rotten hay, broken shelves. I kicked the door open and laid her down on the tarp I used for firewood. She didn't move. I grabbed a bucket, filled it with warm water from the outside tap, and ran back. I wiped her wound gently, rinsed the blood off in careful strokes. Her eyes fluttered. She didn't growl. She didn't purr. Just watched me. I talked while I worked. Maybe more to myself than to her. You must have fallen a good 30 feet. Lucky you landed where you did. Or maybe unlucky. We'll see. She blinked. I wrapped her ribs with an old horse bandage I found in the drawer. It smelled of thyme and dust. The blood soaked through almost instantly. There was no way I could stitch a cougar. I had no sedatives. No tools. I did what I could, said a quiet prayer I hadn't uttered in years, and sat back against the wall. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the shed made me jolt. Every quiet breath of hers made me wonder if it would be her last. My dog, Max, scratched at the door once, sniffed, and walked away. Smart dog. The next morning, I called in sick to the mill. First time in years. I told them I hurt my back. Not entirely a lie. She was still alive. Barely, but alive. Her breathing steadier, her side rising with more rhythm. I boiled some chicken and left it near her mouth, shredded into strips. She didn't touch it. Midday, I stepped into the shed again. Her eyes opened when I entered. They followed me. I crouched. I can't keep calling you she. That's just weird. You need a name, don't you? She didn't respond, obviously, but something in her stare made me say it. Leah. I don't know why. Just feels right. She blinked again, then closed her eyes. That afternoon, I hammered a new lock on the shed door. I told myself it was to keep raccoons out. But deep down, I knew better. I was keeping people out. Neighbors. Strangers. Anyone who wouldn't understand. Because I didn't understand either. But I couldn't let her die alone. The shed smelled of old hay and rusted metal, but it was better than the open field. At least here, Leah wouldn't bleed out under the sun. I spent the first 2 mornings cleaning the wound with saline I made from warm water and salt. It wasn't enough. The cut on her ribs had started turning an ugly shade of green at the edges. I tried not to panic. She still refused to eat. The boiled chicken dried out untouched. On the 3rd day, I mashed it into a paste and put a small dab on her gums. She flinched but didn't fight. I took it as a win. When I wasn't in the shed, I was digging through the back of my pantry, my medicine drawer, even old horse supplies from the barn. I found a near-expired tube of triple antibiotic ointment. I used every last bit on her wound. That evening, as I sat beside her, wiping sweat from my neck with a towel, I muttered, I don't even know if you can hear me, but you better fight. girl. If you want to live, I need you to fight." She opened one eye slowly. That was the first time I felt something pass between us. Not understanding, not trust, but something, a spark. By the end of the week, the swelling around her ribs began to go down. She was still weak, but her breathing no longer rattled. I caught her licking the water bowl once. Just once, but I smiled for the rest of the day. Then came the knock. I had just stepped out of the shed when I saw the old red pickup crunching up the gravel. My stomach dropped. It was my sister. Ellen climbed out, looking more curious than concerned. "You ignoring your phone now?" "Battery's dead," I lied. She looked around. "Place looks the same. You look worse." "Thanks." She followed me toward the house. I tried to steer her clear of the shed, but she paused beside it. "You using the old shed again?" "Thought it was caved in. Just storing tools." "You want coffee or what?" Inside, she sat at the kitchen table like she owned the place. That was Ellen, a storm in boots. She stirred her coffee twice before asking, "You hiding something?" I froze mid-sip. "What do you mean? You look nervous. And tired. And you smell like antiseptic." I shrugged. "Just fixing stuff around the place. Had some raccoons break into the barn." She raised an eyebrow but didn't push. "Not yet." The next morning, she was still there. Said she wanted to help clean up the old garden beds. I couldn't say no. While she pulled weeds, I slipped away to check on Leah. She was upright. Barely, but she had shifted positions. Her eyes followed me when I crouched beside her. "I got company," I whispered. "Don't screw this up for me." I left the shed door slightly open, just in case. When I turned back, Ellen was standing at the corner of the barn, holding something in her hand. A bloodied cloth. My heart stopped. "This yours?" she asked. "It's from the barn. Old wound on one of the horses. Horses you haven't owned in 5 years." She walked toward the shed. "Don't go in there." She turned. "Why?" I hesitated. "It's dangerous." "Dangerous? What the hell is going on, John?" She pushed the door open. I shouted, but it was too late. Inside, Leah was lying still, breathing, but alert. Ellen froze. "Oh my God. John, what did you do?" "I found her. Down by the cliffs. She was dying. I couldn't just leave her." "You brought a wild cougar onto your farm?" "Keep your voice down. Please." Ellen looked at Leah, then at me. "This is insane. You know they kill animals, right? People." "She hasn't hurt anyone. She lets me help her." "Letting you help and not being dangerous aren't the same thing." "I know that. But look at her. She trusts me." Ellen didn't respond. She just stood there, staring at the animal like she was something from another world. Later that night, after I made her promise not to tell anyone, we sat in silence on the porch. Crickets chirped. The wind shifted. "You're not thinking straight," she said finally. "I can't just kill something that wants to live. It's not a puppy. It's not your responsibility." "Maybe it is. I found her. Doesn't that count for something?" Ellen looked at the stars. "You always did take in broken things. But this is different. This one can bite back." She left the next morning. Before driving off, she rolled the window down and stared at me. "I won't say anything. Not yet. But John, this isn't a pet. This is wild. And wild doesn't change because you want it to." She paused. "I won't be able to lie forever." Then she was gone. And I stood there, wondering how long I could keep this going. And why I was even trying. I woke to a sound that didn't belong. Not the soft hum of crickets, or the rustle of trees outside. It was a faint shuffle, something alive moving against wood. My heart skipped. I threw on a jacket and grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen drawer. The shed door creaked when I opened it. I expected Leah curled up, resting like usual. Instead, she was standing, body rigid, head low, eyes fixed on something in the corner. I followed her gaze and nearly dropped the flashlight. A cub, no bigger than a house cat, covered in trembling fur, wide eyes locked on me. My throat dried. I blinked hard, thinking maybe I was hallucinating. But the cub took a step forward, then collapsed. Leah moved between us instantly, growling, though barely audible. Her body still weak, but protective. "Easy," I whispered. "Jesus, you had a baby." Everything made sense now. Why she wouldn't eat. Why she kept breathing through the pain. She'd been keeping something alive. I backed out of the shed slowly and sat on the ground, trying to process. The world had just tilted sideways again. Minutes later, I returned with a blanket and a dropper. I warmed up some goat milk from the fridge. I didn't know what else to do. I approached slowly, crouched, and offered the dropper toward the cub, who barely stirred. "Come on, little one." You've made it this far. Leah didn't stop me this time. She watched closely, but didn't growl. I touched the dropper to the cub's mouth. A slow lick. Then another. I stayed in the shed most of that night. By morning, the cub had taken 3 full droppers. Still weak, but breathing. I wrapped him in the blanket and tucked him near Leah's belly. She nudged him gently, then rested her head across his back. I didn't go to work that day either. I fed the chickens, checked the fence line, but everything else waited. Every hour I came back to check on them. That afternoon, Ellen returned. No text, no call, just the truck rumbling up and her boots hitting gravel. She walked straight past me and into the shed. I followed in silence. She stopped in the doorway. Her eyes locked on the tiny ball of fur curled against Leah. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. After a moment, she turned and handed me a brown bag. Antibiotics. And some stuff for dehydration. Powdered electrolytes. You didn't have to. Didn't do it for you. She crouched near the doorframe and stared. How long has it been here? Last night. I think it crawled in on its own. Or maybe it was always nearby. Ellen didn't speak, just nodded slowly, then left the shed without another word. That evening, I caught her scrubbing the porch. I hadn't seen her clean anything voluntarily in a decade. She looked up. Rob's asking around. My stomach dropped. Rob the game warden? Yeah. Apparently someone saw a big cat near the valley trail. And goats went missing. 3 farms over. It wasn't Leah. She hasn't left the shed. Doesn't matter. She's a cougar. That's enough for most folks. I paced the yard for hours that night. Options running through my head like wildfire. Leah couldn't stay here. Not with Rob sniffing around. Not with neighbors scared. If she got found now, they wouldn't ask questions. I waited until just past midnight. I backed my old Chevy truck around the barn and laid a mattress in the bed. I brought out Leah first, wrapped in the same blanket I found her with. She didn't fight. Maybe she trusted me. Maybe she was too tired. The cub was light as a feather. I placed him beside her, both of them cocooned together. I left a note on the counter for Ellen, just in case. I drove slowly, headlights off until I hit the back road. My plan was to take them to the old ranger cabin near the ridge. It hadn't been used in years. No neighbors. No patrols. A place to disappear. The road narrowed as I turned uphill. Gravel cracked beneath the tires. I kept checking the mirror. Nothing but trees. Then a flash. A deer? No, just light reflecting off something. I overcorrected. The truck slid. Back tires caught the edge. I remember shouting. Trying to brake. Trying to steer. Then everything flipped. Metal groaning. Glass shattering. Silence. And blackness. The first thing I saw when I opened my eyes was a white ceiling and a blinding fluorescent light. The smell of antiseptic hit me next. Then pain. Deep, bruising pain across my chest, ribs, and legs. My tongue felt like sandpaper. Everything inside me hurt, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. Ellen was there. She sat beside the bed, arms folded, dark circles under her eyes. When she noticed I was awake, she didn't smile. Just exhaled through her nose. Took you long enough. What happened? My voice cracked. It hurt to speak. You crashed. Flipped the truck halfway down the ridge. Someone driving by saw the smoke. They pulled you out. The medics said you were lucky to survive. My throat tightened. Leah? The cub? She hesitated. Gone. Gone? What do you mean gone? By the time they got to you, the back was open. No sign of them. No blood. Nothing. I tried to sit up. Pain exploded down my side, sharp and instant, like fire under my skin. You need to rest. You've got 3 cracked ribs, a mild concussion, and enough bruises to make a full body map. I have to find them, I rasped. No, you have to heal, she snapped, but her voice trembled just slightly at the edges. She didn't yell, but her voice had steel in it. And concern, maybe more than she wanted to show. I stayed in that hospital bed for 2 nights. Couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My mind played loops of what might have happened. Leah injured, dragging herself through the woods. The cub crying somewhere. Or worse. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces. I heard the crash again. The metal. The silence. When I got discharged, Ellen drove me home. She didn't talk much. Neither did I. The farm looked the same. But everything felt different. I stepped out of the truck like a ghost returning to a place I used to live. Nothing welcomed me. 3 days passed. Then, a plain envelope showed up in my mailbox. No name. No return address. Inside was a single scrap of paper. Tvernum tut ini mist say. Animals don't belong here. The handwriting was jagged, angry, each letter pressed into the paper like a wound. I burned it. That week, a body was found on the far edge of Miller's property. Not a person, a young cow, torn open, neck twisted, flesh missing. The news spread fast. Phones rang. Screenshots of hoof prints mixed with paw prints flooded the neighborhood group chat. Everyone had a theory. No one had answers. Rob came around again, asking questions. You seen anything out by the ridge lately? No, I lied. Haven't been that way in weeks. He squinted. Strange tracks out there. Not just paw prints. Boot prints too. Someone's been walking with it. Feeding it maybe. I shrugged. No idea. He didn't believe me. But he had nothing. I watched his truck disappear down the road and felt the weight of every word I didn't say press on my chest. That night, I walked the old trail past the tree line. The moon was out, just enough light to see my breath. The air smelled of wet soil and pine. I stopped near the place where we crashed. The truck had already been towed, but I found the broken glass, the scorched earth, and something else. A paw print. Big, clear, fresh, not alone. Beside it, a smaller print. Cub-sized. I followed them. Through the brush. Past the old fence. Into the deeper woods where no one goes. Branches scratched my arms. Roots grabbed my boots. The trail faded, but I kept moving. An hour passed. Maybe two. Then I heard it. A sound I knew too well. Not a roar. Not a growl. Just a low, mournful moan. It echoed between the trees like it was coming from everywhere and nowhere. I spun around. Nothing. Just darkness. Leah. Silence. The next few nights were the same. I kept hearing her. Or thought I did. Maybe it was just the wind. Maybe it was guilt. Or madness. Or memory refusing to let go. Ellen came by again. Brought soup. Sat on the steps. You're chasing ghosts, she said. Even if she survived, you think she'd stick around? She had her cub. She wouldn't leave him. And what if someone else took them? What if they didn't make it? What if that note wasn't just a threat? I didn't answer. Couldn't. She placed a hand on my shoulder. Maybe it's time to let go. She made her choice. Now you need to make yours. You can't save the whole world, John. She left after that. But I couldn't stop. The next morning, I packed a bag. Water. Snacks. Flashlight. A first aid kit. Some meat in a Ziploc, just in case. Then I hiked back to the ravine. To the place I first found her. The air was heavy. The same wind rustled the same trees. Nothing looked different. Until I saw the blood. Not much. Just a smear on a flat rock. Dried. But recent. And something else. A collar. Frayed. No tag. No clasp. Just leather, torn down the middle. The kind a hunter might use to track a dog. Or an animal someone thought they could control. I picked it up, heart pounding. My mind raced. Who put this on her? And why? Then I saw the trail. Not paw prints this time. Drag marks. Leading into the gorge. Something happened here. Something I hadn't seen. And whatever it wasn't over. I followed the drag marks into the gorge, stepping over fallen branches and ducking beneath low-hanging limbs. The air felt heavier here, thick with silence. Birds weren't singing. Even the insects seemed to hush. I moved slower the deeper I went, every sense on edge. My boots crunched softly on moss-covered stones, and the smell of wet bark filled my lungs. The trail veered left near a pile of boulders, then disappeared into dense underbrush. I pushed through, branches whipping my face, until I came upon a hollow between two rocks. And there they were. Leah was curled around the cub, her body shielding his. Her fur was matted with dirt and blood. One of her hind legs lay at an odd angle. She lifted her head slowly when she saw me. No growl, just those golden eyes. Eyes I would never forget. Hey, I whispered, dropping to my knees. You found your way home. The cub looked up weakly, then tucked his head against her neck. I scanned the area. No traps. No signs of people. Yet, the wind stirred the leaves behind me, and I flinched, half expecting shadows to emerge. I unpacked the small kit I'd brought and set it near them. Leah watched every move, but didn't flinch when I reached for her leg. The break wasn't new, but it was bad. Swollen. Possibly infected. I cursed under my breath, wishing I'd brought more supplies, something better than gauze and tape. We don't have much time, I said, more to myself than to her. I left a strip of meat near the cub. He sniffed at it, then licked it slowly. It was something. Leah nudged him closer to me. Was she asking for help? Or saying goodbye? Her eyes were glassy, tired, but there was a quiet strength in the way she held herself. That's when I heard it. Distant voices. Cracking brush. Dogs. I froze. Rob. I crept up the incline behind the hollow and saw them through the trees. 4 men. 2 with rifles. Rob was in front, scanning the ground. One of the dogs barked twice and pulled toward the right. They were close. Too close. I had to think fast. I scrambled down, grabbed a broken branch, and dragged it through the dirt in the opposite direction. Then I rubbed some of the leftover meat on my boots and ran a loop northeast, away from Leah's hiding place. I stomped hard to leave a trail. The dogs would follow scent and movement. I prayed they would. When I reached a clearing, I smashed a water bottle against a rock and tossed the soaked cloth under a bush, then doubled back silently through the stream. My heart pounded the whole way, every step a silent plea that I wasn't too late. By the time I returned, the forest behind me was silent. I couldn't hear the men anymore. Maybe it worked. Maybe they took the bait. Or maybe they were just regrouping. I had no time to celebrate. But this wasn't a long-term plan. I needed help. I texted Ellen. Now or never. Bring the contact. Hurry. She didn't reply, but I knew she'd come. She always did, even when she didn't want to. An hour later, I heard the crunch of her tires on the gravel near the old ranger trail. She met me at the bend, hair tied back, eyes fierce. The look on her face said everything. You have 10 minutes. They're circling. Rob's tracking your scent. I fed him a tip about a sighting near Henderson's orchard. That should buy you some time. The rehab center? Will they take her? Only if she's alive. And you vouch for no human aggression. She never hurt anyone. Ellen nodded, pulled a tarp and kennel from the back. We worked fast. Leah didn't resist when I lifted the cub into the padded crate. She growled once when we approached with the stretcher, but quieted when I placed my hand on her head. I got you, I whispered. Let me do this. Just this one last thing. With Ellen driving, we took the back roads through the hills. The trip felt endless. The cub slept most of the way, curled like a comma in the crate. Leah lay with one eye open, her breathing shallow but steady. Every bump in the road made me wince for them. We stopped only once, to pour water onto a rag and dab Leah's cracked lips. The cub stirred, licked Ellen's fingers once, and fell back into sleep. She looked at me, eyes soft. You sure you're ready to let go? I never was. But it's time. When we arrived at the wildlife center, the vet team met us at the back entrance. I signed papers. Ellen handled the rest. They asked questions. I answered honestly. My hands shook as I handed over the forms. The moment they wheeled Leah away, she turned her head and looked back, straight at me. And I swear, in that split second, I saw gratitude. Not the kind you get from pets. The kind you get from something wild. Something free. Something that knows. I stood outside the center for nearly an hour, just staring at the doors. Ellen waited in the truck. She didn't rush me. She knew. A month passed. I tried to go back to normal. Feeding the chickens. Fixing fences. Mending tools. But every night, I walked to the edge of the field and looked toward the trees. Waiting for a sign. A sound. Anything. Then, one morning, an envelope arrived. Inside was a photo. Leah, standing tall on a rocky ridge. Her leg healed, barely visible scar across her ribs. Behind her, the cub, grown stronger, almost her size. No fence, no enclosure, just sky. On the back of the photo, one line. Released. Northwest quadrant. Thriving. I held the picture for a long time. My hands trembled. She was free. She made it. But I was still here. The photo stayed pinned on my wall above the kitchen table. I looked at it every morning with my coffee. Some days it gave me peace. Others, it broke me all over again. I sat on the porch that night and watched the stars blink on. Did I do the right thing? Did I cross a line that shouldn't have been crossed? Or did I give her the one thing she needed most? I'll never know for sure. But some nights, when the wind moves just right, I hear the rustle of leaves beyond the barn. And I imagine her there, watching, remembering, and maybe, just maybe, forgiving me for trying to make a place for the wild in a world that keeps shutting it out.